Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second day of the second weekend of the fifth edition of the Lonavala International Film Festival of India. I'm Viveck Vaswani, I'm the curator, and with me here today is Mr. Pravesh Sippy, a producer, distributor, and great personal friend, who is also the son of Mr. Ananth Sippy, whose films we are showing as a tribute at this festival. Today, I have my dear friend, Mr. Ananth Mahadevan. I don't know what to say about him. Writer, director, actor, producer, raconteur, author, television personality, and information unlimited. I have with me Mr. Madhav Todi, the festival director of the Lonavala International Film Festival, and this is our fifth edition. We are very proud to be on Plexigo, and without any further ado, I must tell you that it has not been planned, but yesterday was Mr. Shashi Kapoor's death anniversary, and today we're showing Shashi Saab's Fakira. Fakira was in that period when Mr. Raj Kapoor called Shashi Kapoor a taxi because Shashi Kapoor did not say no to any film. He acted in every film, but the solo films that he did, and he did two with Mr. NNCP, there was Fakira and there was Chon, which I showed back to back almost. Both were huge mega hits. His multi-starrers became mega hits as well. Roti Kapra aur Makan, Shan, uh, a whole bunch of others, Kala Patthar, Diwar Trishul, Do Aur Do Panch, and he became legendary, turned producer, made the kind of films he chose to, with directors like Shyam Benegal and Govind Nihalani. And he had a very rich and a very, very full life. So on his birth anniversary, and I knew him very well, I would not like to be sad. I would like to say, Shashidab, hats off, and we wish there were many more people like you in the film industry. Over to Fakira. Fakira, I remember from the time I saw the poster, I wanted to see it. It looked exciting, it looked thrilling, it looked as commercial could get. My mouth was watering to get there. And then the radio programs started on Vivid Bharati. They used to have these 15-minute sponsored programs. And I used to hear the radio program of Fakira, and the title song hit me. And I remember there was a magazine called Stardust where they used to do a court martial. And Shashi Saab did something, and where he said that, I'm doing a song where we don't say Tota and Mena anymore, because in the last film I did with Mr. Sippy, he said, Ek dal pe Tota bole, Ek dal pe Mena. And this film he's made me sing, Tota Mehna ki kahani bahut purani ho gayi. So I remember all these little vignettes. I was a school child, but I remember these very, very clearly. These are not things you can forget, actually. And Ananth, over to you. You used to work with Mr. VP Sathe at Bombay Publicity Service, and you used to know Mr. Sippy intimately. So this time, instead of asking Pravesh to talk about his dad, I'm going to ask you to talk about your memories of Shashi Kapoor, NN Sippy, and Fakira.
Thank you, Vivek, and thank you, Pravesh Saab and Madhavji, for giving me this opportunity to go down memory lane today. And it's you won't believe it's like it's just happened yesterday. You know, it's that not in the distant past, but in the very very near past, because I think they left memories that stayed with you as though it happened yesterday. Uh, I would say, the 70s, like, it was Sate Sahab who came and told me this, that, because Sate Sahab was very close to Raj Sahab. And Sate Sahab came and said, you know what Raj Sahab calls Shashi Kapoor? He calls him a taxi. Arey, इधर मीटर डालो उधर मीटर डालो कोई भी फिल्म आया चलो शुरू हो जाओ. I think he did about 7 or 8 films, if I'm not mistaken, in 1976 when Fakira was released. Of course, he did many more before. So that entire decade of the 70s almost belonged to him. If you count the number of films he did, it's a record. Although he ended up doing only about 100 films, but I think the 70s really contributed a lot. And it's really poignant that we are, in a way, commemorating his death anniversary. For me, Shashi Kapoor went beyond films. I'm going to come to that because I used to meet him at Prithvi Theatre when we used to perform. And right from the day when I did Khamosh Adalat Jari Hai, Vijay Tendulkar's play, in which I played a character called Samant. And he used to make it a habit to see the first show, the first performance of every play. So there he was, and intimidatingly in that white this thing. And most of the time, he never took a seat. He used to sit on the steps. So he was there, right in your face. And you better give a good performance because you wanted to be in this film, as an actor. But the next evening, when on Sunday, we had performed on Saturday and we continued shows on Sunday, he came up to me and said something that I'll never forget, that almost made me die. He said, "मैं आपका fan हूँ." What do you tell that person whom you have admired all your life, who you feel is the epitome of? I would say he's the last romantic hero. He is the last of the Mohicans. He was the man who sort of brought romance with such a flair on screen. Whether it was Chor Machaye Shore, or whether it was Fakira, or whether it was Sharmili, or all those Jab Jab Phool Khile, you just name it, and the smile and the kind of persona and the flair with which, the style with which he did it. He it's a pity that somewhere he got lost in a whole set of, like Vivek correctly pointed out, multi-starrers, and suddenly he found himself playing not really second fiddle, but just a parallel lead to Mr. Bachchan in so many of the Bachchan starrers, where the more powerful part was given to Mr. Bachchan, and the more softer, romantic, which was rather the more difficult part to portray, was given to Mr. Shashi Kapoor. But he took it all in his stride, and he played them so well, and he played them to the hilt. And of course, this was, I think, C.P. Dikshit's third film with NNCP. He made Paras, then he made Harjeet with Anil Dhawan and Radha Saluja and Rehana Sultan. And then he went on to making Fakira. That's when you admire, the existence of the producers like NNCP. He made sure that his directors were employed over a period of time with him, and he always stood by them, and he gave them the best possible exposure that any banner or any producer could give. Because even a film like Harjeet in those days was considered a slightly, smaller film compared to what Sippy Saab used to make. But even that was promoted. I still remember the ads that came out in the Times of India. I still remember it was promoted very, very well. So coming back to Fakira, yes, it's the usual Robin Hood story. It's the usual brothers baying for each other's blood story. It's all that, all the formulae put together. But like Vivek again very rightly said, we were very eagerly waiting to see that film, because all the songs had become very popular, and Ravindra Jain's Sangeet, Dil mein tujhe bitha ke. I mean, Lata ji, gave it that classical feel, which, and of course, Tota Maina Ki Kahani or Fakira Chal Chala Chal. It was Mahendra Kapoor's return to the NNCP camp, I think, after a long time. I think after the song in Paras, I hadn't heard him with NNCP Saab. I hope I'm right. So Mahendra Kapoor sang the title song for that, and of course, it was not only just a musical hit, but it was a rip-roaring hit. As far as Shabana Azmi is concerned, yes, we were surprised to see her break all the shackles of the so-called, what would one say, substantial, meaningful, cinema of substance. And she broke loose in this film, and the whole body language changed, and she adjusted herself so well to what, I mean, when you have Shashi Kapoor in front of you, who was, what would one say, the absolute idol of romance, and the great box office star, and you got to compete with him. And then you see I still remember the climax with the Ravan effigies burning. Oh, that was quite a climax, yes. So, and when you see the reverse that happened with Shashi Kapoor, he put all his money into the kind of films he wanted to make. And he made Junoon with Shyam Benegal. He made Utsav with Girish Karnad. And, and of course, he made with the film with Govind Nelani, with Vijeta with Kunal Kapoor. So Kalyug, of course, with Shyam Benegal. So he suddenly you realized that the man was doing all this very convincingly, never betraying the feel that, oh, I'm doing something that I'm not comfortable with or something, and then taking all that money and putting it into Filmwalas, which was the company that, made cinema of substance. So that was Shashi Kapoor, starting from Shakespeare Wala and Householder, and traveling that entire, getting married to Jennifer and setting up Prithvi Theatre. I mean, Prithvi Theatre is, for me, my second home. That's a place I was reborn, born again as an actor, and I have performed since 1980 in Prithvi till today. And I have seen when Prithvi did not have any embargo on audiences. The 200 seater was actually a 300 and a 400 seater, people sitting on the aisles and watching us. Jagmohan Mundra standing right up there, standing because he could not get a place to sit, and applauding our Nautanki version of Inspector Gogol called Ala Afsar. I have memories, and I have memories of Shashi Kapoor, and I have also, seen him just sit there, totally lost, and looking into the distance, because once he had grown old, he still insisted that he comes back to Prithvi Theatre and be there when the performances happen. He just loved to see the activity at Prithvi. It would have hurt him very badly today, if he was there and this entire year we did not have any theatre functioning, forget Prithvi. So that it will really hurt him that Prithvi was closed for the first time in the history of the theatre this year. And he used to come and sit there. And then I witnessed this when we were watching a play, and he was sitting in front of me. I was sitting on the steps too. And then Shabana came up to him and said hello. And he just looked at her and he said, "Hello, Shashi ji, main Shabana." And so those were the last memories I had of him. And then he stopped coming to Prithvi Theatre. A man who had lived his life to the fullest, a man who gave the medium everything he had, whether as an actor, as a producer, and even, of course, as a director, when he chose to make Ajuba with Mr. Bachchan rather than himself. So uh, one of the most colorful personalities I've ever met. And I'm really privileged and humbled and honored to be talking about him today, about his film Fakira. And tomorrow there are a lot of trivia. There are a lot of trivia about Chor Machai Shor, which we will share with you tomorrow. So that's what it is.
So,
Thank
Reshmi,
you.
I will, yeah, sorry. Uh, y'all were almost neighbors. Y'all were in Warden Road, and Shashi Saab was at Atlas down the road at Nepensi Road.
That is,
So,
yes.
Sippy Saab and Shashi ji, would they all go over for breakfast? And was there like a, over?
Absolute ghar ka aana jana family kind of scene. The boys, the whole family, bonded together, and we went out for the Fakira outdoors. I remember Kashmir, and talking about Tota Mena, uh, when we were shifting locations, and we reached Srinagar, and it rained heavily, and then it snowed. So we had a nice fire going on at night. We got quality time with them. And then the next day, it was a fabulous day, and the song at the Rose Garden was shot just as planned. So these kind of memories on an outdoor, because by then, like you said, we were about 15, 14, whatever, and for me, I was at that time getting into it. uh, so Kali Charan was being made almost back to back, was Fakira. So every time there was a Kali Charan schedule, and it would go into the edit, then there would be a Fakira shoot that would go into the edit. We'd get to see the Kali Charan footage in Navrang Lab, and then back to back see the Fakira footage. You know, so I mean, I saw those two films on the sets.
Going together kind of situation.
Yeah, I just saw them,
Oh,
completely take shape, and of course because of Chor Machai Shor. So those 2-3 years, the family bonding, the coming going, the neighborhood, the Bridge Candy Club, all of that. During his taxi days and during his 3 shifts a day, but despite the 3 shifts a day that he did, when he said 7 a.m., He was there 7 to 11 for you. He was there till 3 o'clock for the next guy. And he was there till 6:30 for the third guy. And he showed up for the 3.5, 4 hours that was committed. And he delivered what was asked of him and he left. He never stayed on till 10 and midnight or whatever. He did his thing and left at 6:30. He never shot on Sundays, you know. That was family day for him. That was Breach Candy Club day for him. So then of course, same age. So Kunal and Karan and Sanjana was a little younger. And but I have a fabulous photograph of I found for all the social media posts now. I found a picture of Dad in an intense conversation with Kunal and Karan both. In the same picture. It's a terrific picture that I found. So yeah, those we were close. Yes. Yes.
I want to ask you one more question. C.P. Dixit did 3 films for Mr. Sippy. How did he choose Dixit Saab? And of course, after the first film, there would have been a relationship which led into a second film and into a third film. But you had the same NNCP, C.P. Dixit doing Fakira, which was a blockbuster of an announcement. Forget about the film.
And he also did Gazab.
And then, of course, he did Gazab much later on. And then there was a Harjeet, which was a medium-sized budget film. Before you say anything, I must tell you, Harjeet, my mother was pregnant. And there was a family wedding in the house. It was the month of May. I think it had to be May because my brother was born in May. And they had bought 22 tickets to see Harjeet. And they were on their way to the airport, to the cinema. I think it was Alankar because I saw the tickets. And my mother went into labor. So my father took her to the Breach Candy. And the rest of them carried on to seeing Harjeet. And they finished seeing the film and they landed up at the hospital and my brother had been born.
Lovely.
I distinctly remember the film because of, the fact that right through the Marine Drive, I could see Harjeet, 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 Harjeet on all the lampposts. So his relationship with C.P. Dixit I was talking about. Was Fakira smooth sailing in spite of Shashi Rab's dates and,
Absolutely. And I don't remember him doing this 3-shift business with us. I think our dates were a full 9 to 6 shift. And I'm quite sure about that. I don't, maybe one odd day or somewhere, some adjustments, those are different. But in general, I'd say the dates weren't an issue. There was never any trouble. In fact, there was, people don't know, but there was one more film that we actually were doing with Mr. Shashi Kapoor. And it was a remake of a super hit Kannada film that Kader Khan had written for us, the Hindi version. Everything was ready. It was casted. It was all in place. And it was also going to feature my cousin Rajan Sippy. And so Shashi Kapoor, there were 3 generations in that story. So there was Shashi Kapoor, then there was Rajan Sippy in the middle. And the third hero was the reigning dancing superstar of those days who was a nightmare. Let's not take names. But when that nightmare luckily started, before we even got onto the sets, we called it off. We just said there's no point getting into it and getting stressed and dealing with it. So unfortunately, a very good bound script with dialogue written and everything paid for to Kader Khan Saab, and brilliant work at that time. He was at his peak doing his best work. Unfortunately, one more film with Shashi Kapoor didn't get made, just as it was on the verge of going ahead.
I want to add a trivia here. Rajan Sippy was my classmate in Don Bosco School.
Wow.
And I could always see the ambition in him. I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to be a hero. And don't I look like Vinod Khanna? Don't I look like Vinod Khanna? And he still keeps in touch. He's in Dubai, I believe, now. He keeps in touch and he's a dear friend. So
Madhuri Dixit, it was after Abodh that Rajan Sippy was
Avara Baap.
Avara Baap.
Yeah.
Which had Rajesh Khanna and Meenakshi Shishadri and Rajan Sippy and Madhuri Dixit as the second lead pair, which is quite incredible when you look back now and you wonder how things started, how things panned out, and how things actually happened. I do remember because by then I was actually following the newspaper ads and I knew which cinemas had big screens, which cinemas had small screens, which were air conditioned, which were not air conditioned. And I remember Central was the main theater for Fakira.
Yeah.
And I was like, but this is not easy.
No AC.
This is not run. What is he doing? I was actually like that. And then 3 days or 4 days before Maratha Mandir came in, apparently the whole of Central Plaza was full. And there was still a crowd. So he took on a second main theatre for a limited engagement of a week, which became two. And it came to Central and Maratha Mandir simultaneously. I must tell you that it's a very rare occasion. If you had
There were 3 films on that weekend, including Fakira.
Oh, I didn't know about the third.
There was I think Ma with Dharmendra, and there was
Yes, Ma came to
Ek Se
Apsara,
Badhkar Ek.
and Ek Se Badhkar Ek came to Shalimar,
Yeah,
and Fakira came to Central and Maratha Mandir.
yeah.
Normally, you'd have two main theatres when the first main theatre was South Bombay.
Right.
Like Ma came to Apsara and it also came to New Excelsior. You know, and Ek Se Badhkar Ek came to good old Shalimar, but it also came to, let's say, New Empire. But Fakira had Capitol, Fakira had Central Plaza, Fakira. But then I realized that, you know, Central is the kind of house that will give it a solid 25 weeks non-stop, and it did. And I don't know whether it went beyond that because after 25 weeks, I stopped calculating. I said, yeah.
Well,
What-
I would say 5 crores, but that amounts to say 125 crores today. But 5 crores is what Fakira apparently collected in those days.
It was huge. It actually consolidated Shabana as a very major top line A grade heroine. And of course, Sippy Saab's favorite friends who are there in all the movies, which was Danny and Asrani Saab. He just took them out from Fakira and put them from
Aruna Irani. She's there in so many films.
Who?
Aruna Irani.
Aruna, of course. So I must tell you that he just took them out from Chor Machai Shor and put them into Fakira. He didn't even bother to waste time. He said, this is it. Mumtaz went, Shabana came, everybody's there, Ashok Roy is there, and good old Dikshit Saab is there. Kali Charan Chalo, you've got Subha. It was a factory, yaar. Tell me something about, I mean, how is it? I've only heard of one other factory. Mr. Manmohan Desai, Ketan Desai used to say that once he had to book RK Studios, and there was, I think, Naseeb going on in one place and Parvarish going on in one. Anyway, there were 3 movies. But you guys had as big, if not a bigger factory.
Yeah, and even in the distribution for a couple of years, there was almost at least 3 films a week. So it was crazy. It was busy as hell. The number of employees that were there at that time, it was a big operation, and maybe that's why I got frightened out of distribution, and I said, I'm not really cut out for that.
But
Let
tell
me
me
just
something.
focus.
How did Sippy Saab come up with the name Janta Film Distributors? Why Janta?
I never asked him that. I should have. It's a great question.
No, it's such a futuristic name. Today it is the name of the ruling party.
No, I'm sure it had nothing to do with that. But it's more maybe for the public kind of thing.
Yeah.
In other words, he was very clear. I think that he was making his films for his commercial audiences, his Janta.
Yeah.
And he was right, because even in the distribution, you know, as he said, Arjun, which is, I think, apart from Betab and Love Story, Rahul Ravel's biggest commercial success. He's never been able to touch that. And it was actually downhill from there because Samandar and Yodha and various films did not, but it was Ananth Sippy who saw the wisdom way ahead. He knew which films to choose to buy, which films to choose, which scripts to back, which directors to back.
No, he was human. I mean, if you see the post I put on my Facebook today, an interview of his that came out a week before Fakira's release, lists a lot of the films that big budget films that he bought distribution rights and lost a hell of a lot of money on those. So he was human. That's
Yeah, of course he was human. But there was a certain vision, there was a certain logic. There was, I will buy this because of the cast, or I will buy this because of the price, or I will buy this because it's a free weekend. I mean, he had the whole calculation in his head, which a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, that he did. That he certainly did.
I used to see him and Mr. GP Sippy talk to one another. I won't tell you the extent of the language because that was quite fruity. Two Sindhis sitting together, you know exactly how they must have talked to one another. But they were very, very canny people, very, very canny people. And they did the best they could. And the results are there for all of us to see. Today is the fifth NNCP film that we are seeing. And I must tell you, it's been a very, very great ride so far. Madhavji, how are we doing on time? Do we have any questions?
There are no questions per se. People are appreciative of the acting of the lead players in the film, Shashiji and Shabanaji both. And they've been appreciative of how good the film is and how much they've enjoyed watching it and how much they're looking forward to watching it again. I do hope all our viewers had watched the film yesterday and they must have enjoyed, as Praveshji mentioned.
Actually, I must tell you, I did, and the quality was definitely outstanding.
Thank you, Ultra, again.
Yes, so Sushmita, chief patron, and Ultra Video, the content partner.
And
so
also, I must say that I'm purposely not getting into the plot of Fakira because, as Ananth Mahadevan sir said, Robin Hood, so I don't want to spoil how it goes. Let them enjoy the set pieces. Let them enjoy
The climax.
And let them enjoy that magnificent climax. And I don't want to say anything more of the film. We've talked about Shashi Saab, we've talked about NNCP. Any last words, Ananth? About music?
Well, these are moments when you can go on and on and on. These are moments that have lived with us all these years. So there will never be last words. There will only words that flow, memories that flow. And we keep enjoying these films. We still keep seeing these films and enjoying these films, very unlike the kind of cinema we have today. So I would say if ever there was a commercial era in India, it is this kind of cinema that has defined it.
And I must say, it's not the other way around. It's not because this was the era, that's why Mr. Sippy was in it. It was because of Mr. Sippy and the other GP Sippy and the third NC Sippy and Shaktida Pramod Chakravarti, Ramanand Sagar, J. O. Prakash, Atmaram, that this era became this era.
The brains behind, yes. Certainly the brains behind this. Yeah.
Certainly the brains. And actually, I must tell you, and I think I speak for both Praveshji and Anandji, I think we were privileged to be a small part of it. I think we were privileged to have seen cinema of that era as opposed to what we are seeing today. Silver lining is that Christopher Nolan's film opened yesterday in cinemas all across the country and has been running to packed houses in spite of social distancing. So when we say packed houses, I don't mean 100%, but since we're only selling 50% of the tickets, 50% of the tickets were sold and people are enjoying it. So hopefully the good news today is that things will normalize in the next 3 months in the cinemas. But no matter how much they normalize, my advice to all of you is be safe, sanitize yourself, keep your social distancing, keep on washing your hands, keep a little basin at Inox so that every 10 minutes you can put your hands and wash it while you're seeing the movie. And enjoy yourselves. Okay. Thank you, Anand sir. Thank you, Sippy Saab. Tomorrow we have Chor Machai Shor, and tomorrow we'll have Divya with us. But Anand, please do join us. These are actually now becoming the high points of my weekends. I'm really enjoying myself. I must say this with all. I am delighted, Pravesh, to see you looking better and better every time. Because I think deep inside we're all really enjoying ourselves. This is not a chore anymore. This is something we eagerly look forward to.
It is.
God bless. And
thank you.
Just one last thing I'd like to put in here. Our graph of viewers has been increasing at a very good rate. And it's obviously due to panelists like Anandji, Praveshji, and the others, Anandji, Milinji, Divyaji, all of us who have come together and are giving this information, the trivia, the details about what has gone in the past. And I think people are actually looking forward to it because there is no other reason why the viewership would go on increasing on a day-to-day basis. So we're very happy that this is happening, and thank you all for all of this that you've put together. Thank you very much. And we'll
thank you, and welcome to Fakira.
Thank you. Enjoy the evening.